If you had 60 minutes to survive a blackout that could last days, here's the 9 critical moves most people miss, and why the first hour determines everything. Here's what nobody tells you. The first 60 minutes of a blackout create a cascade effect that either fortifies your home into a resilient fortress or leaves you scrambling in chaos when the stakes explode. Not the first day, not the first night, the first hour. Because what you do, or fail to do, in those initial moments determines whether you thrive or just barely survive. This isn't paranoia. This is physics, biology, and the cold reality that modern infrastructure is more fragile than we pretend. If you're not executing a specific sequence of actions within that first hour, you're already behind. And in a blackout, behind means vulnerable. So the lights cut out. Your instinct screams to grab your phone, open social media, start texting everyone you know. Resist that urge with everything you've got. Why? Because in the first 5 minutes of a blackout, information is your most precious and rapidly depleting resource, and you're about to waste it on panic and speculation. Here's what's actually happening in your neighborhood right now. Thousands of people are simultaneously hammering cell towers with calls, texts, and data requests. Those towers, they're running on backup batteries that last anywhere from 2 to 8 hours under normal load. Under surge conditions, which is exactly what a widespread blackout creates, that window shrinks to 90 minutes or less. Every second you spend refreshing Twitter is a second you're not gathering actionable intelligence. So here's your first move, and you've got 5 minutes to execute it. Grab a pen and paper. Yes, actual paper, because your phone's Notes app is a battery vampire. And systematically document what you observe. Is it just your house or the whole street? Can you see traffic lights? Are there sounds of emergency vehicles? This isn't busy work, this is threat assessment. A localized outage means a downed transformer and a probable 4 to 6 hour restoration. A neighborhood-wide blackout suggests grid failure, and that timeline extends to days. Next, make exactly 3 phone calls and make them count. Call 1 neighbor, 1 family member outside your immediate area, and 1 local emergency contact if you have medical needs. Keep each conversation under 60 seconds. Your goal isn't comfort, it's confirmation. Are they experiencing the same thing? What are they hearing? Then, and this is crucial, turn your phone to airplane mode. Not off, not on silent. Airplane mode. You've just extended your battery life by 300%, and you're going to need every electron of that charge. But here's the kicker. While everyone else is burning through their batteries in a dopamine-fueled information spiral, you've just secured the high ground. You know the scope, you've established communication, and you've preserved your lifeline. That's not luck, that's protocol. Most people don't realize that when the power dies, their water supply is on borrowed time. If you live in a house, you might have 30 minutes before pressure drops. In an apartment above the 3rd floor, you've got maybe 10. The pumps that push water to your taps, your toilets, your showers, they all run on electricity. And the municipal reserves that keep pressure in the lines, those are finite. This is your second move, and it's non-negotiable. Fill every container you own with water, not some, every single one. Start with your bathtub. If it's clean, plug it and start filling immediately. That's 40 to 60 gallons right there. While that's running, grab every pot, pitcher, bucket, and empty soda bottle in your house. Fill them systematically, starting with the cleanest containers for drinking water. Here's the science you need to understand. The human body requires a minimum of 1 gallon of water per day for drinking and basic sanitation. That's not comfort. That's survival baseline. A family of 4 needs 4 gallons daily, which means in a 3-day blackout, the average duration for major grid failures, you need 12 gallons minimum. But you're not planning for minimum. You're planning for reality, which includes cooking, cleaning wounds, and maintaining hygiene. Double that number, 24 gallons, and you're going to secure it in the next 15 minutes. Don't forget the hidden reserves. Your water heater holds 30 to 50 gallons of potable water. Locate the drain valve now while you're thinking clearly. Your toilet tanks, not the bowls, the tanks, contain another 2 to 3 gallons each. Mark these mentally as emergency reserves. And here's your force multiplier. If you have advance warning, even 60 seconds, fill your washing machine and stop the cycle. That's another 20 gallons banked. Fill your dishwasher, fill your coffee maker's reservoir. Every container is a future lifeline. The empowering truth? While your neighbors are realizing their mistakes 6 hours from now when the taps run dry, you'll have secured a week's supply in 15 minutes of focused action. That's not hoarding, that's household security. Your refrigerator is now a ticking clock, and most people completely misunderstand how it works. The moment power cuts, the temperature inside begins climbing at a rate of roughly 2 degrees per hour. You've got a 4-hour window before perishables enter the danger zone where bacteria multiply exponentially. But here's what nobody tells you. Every time you open that door, you cut that window by 30 minutes. Move 3 is about discipline and physics. Do not open your refrigerator or freezer unless absolutely necessary. Not to check, not to grab a snack, not to see how cold it still is. Treat those doors like they're welded shut for the next 4 hours. Why? Because your fridge is now a highly efficient insulated box, and insulation only works if you don't break the seal. Here's your action sequence. In the first 10 minutes of the blackout, open your freezer exactly once. Grab every ice pack, frozen water bottle, and bag of ice you have. Move them to your refrigerator compartment, distributing them on the top shelf where cold air naturally sinks. This single action can extend your fridge's safe zone from 4 hours to 8 or even 10. Then close both doors and walk away. If you have a standalone freezer that's well stocked, it will maintain safe temperatures for 48 hours if left unopened, 72 hours if it's packed full. A half-empty freezer? 24 hours maximum. This is why preppers obsess about keeping freezers at capacity. It's not about food quantity, it's about thermal mass. Cold food keeps other food cold. Now here's your strategic decision point. Identify which perishables are most valuable and most vulnerable. Meat, dairy, and prepared foods are your high-risk items. If you have a cooler, this is the moment to deploy it. Transfer your most critical items into the cooler with ice packs, creating a secondary cold zone you can access without compromising your main refrigerator. And here's the truth that separates the prepared from the panicked. You're not trying to save everything. You're triaging. You're making calculated decisions about what matters most. That's not waste. That's wisdom under pressure. Candles. Everyone's first instinct and everyone's first mistake. Yes, candles provide light. They also consume oxygen, produce carbon monoxide, create fire hazards, and broadcast to everyone outside that you're home and potentially vulnerable. In a short-term blackout, that's inconvenient. In an extended crisis, that's a security risk. Your fourth move is establishing light discipline, and it starts with understanding the hierarchy of illumination. Flashlights are your primary tool, but not all flashlights are created equal. You want LED-based lights with adjustable brightness. Why? Because a flashlight on high beam drains batteries 8 times faster than one on low, and you rarely need high beam indoors. Here's your lighting protocol. Designate one room as your primary living space for the duration, typically the room with the most natural light during the day and the best insulation at night. This is your command center. Set up one primary light source here, a lantern-style LED light or a flashlight in lantern mode. Keep it on the lowest setting that allows safe movement. Your eyes will adjust within 20 minutes, and you'll be shocked how little light you actually need. For movement between rooms, use headlamps or small handheld flashlights. The advantage of headlamps is hands-free operation, which becomes critical when you're carrying supplies, cooking, or managing children. Assign one to each family member and establish a rule. Lights off when stationary, lights on only when moving. Now here's the tactical element most people miss. Light management is also about external perception. If you're in an urban or suburban environment during an extended blackout, you don't want your house glowing like a beacon while every other home sits dark. Use blackout curtains, blankets, or even cardboard to cover windows in rooms where you're using light. This isn't paranoia, it's operational security. You're not advertising your preparedness level to anyone who might be desperate. But here's the kicker about light discipline. It's not just about conservation and security, it's about psychology. Controlled, purposeful lighting creates calm. Chaotic, bright, battery-draining lighting creates anxiety. You're not just managing lumens, you're managing morale. Your smartphone is simultaneously your greatest asset and your greatest liability. It's a communication device, a flashlight, an information portal, and a battery-powered countdown timer to isolation. By the end of hour 1, you need a communication strategy that doesn't depend on cellular networks or internet connectivity. Move 5 is about building redundancy. First, identify every communication device in your household. Smartphones, tablets, laptops, even old cell phones in drawers, they all have value. Old phones without service can still call 911 as long as any carrier signal exists, and they can connect to Wi-Fi if it becomes available. Gather them, power them down, and store them as backup units. Next, establish a family communication plan that doesn't require technology. If you have family members who aren't home when the blackout hits, you need a predetermined rally point and a timeline. If power is out for more than 4 hours, we meet at home. If home is inaccessible, we meet at specific location. Write this down. Rehearse it. This isn't dramatic, it's practical. Now here's where most people fail. They don't leverage their neighborhood. In the first hour, while you still have daylight or early evening visibility, make contact with immediate neighbors. Not a social call, a tactical one. Exchange information. Who has medical needs? Who has generators? Who has elderly family members? This isn't about being nosy. It's about building a mutual aid network. In a 72-hour blackout, your neighbors become your most valuable resource. If you have a battery-powered or hand crank radio, this is the moment to deploy it. Tune to local AM stations for emergency broadcasts AM radio travels farther and penetrates buildings better than FM. NOAA weather radio frequencies provide official emergency information. This is your link to the outside world when digital networks fail. And here's your force multiplier. If you have a car, it's a mobile charging station with a full tank of potential. But don't start charging devices yet. You're still in hour 1, and your phone should be in airplane mode with 70% or more battery. The car is your reserve power plant, and you don't tap reserves until you've exhausted primary resources. The empowering reality? You've just built a communication architecture that functions across multiple failure points. That's not just preparedness, that's resilience engineering. Here's what most people don't realize until it's too late. Your home is a thermal battery, and it's either charging or discharging based on outside conditions. In summer, a house without air conditioning can reach dangerous temperatures within 4 to 6 hours. In winter, indoor temperatures can drop below freezing in 8 to 12 hours depending on insulation and outside conditions. The first hour is when you lock in your thermal advantage. Move 6 is about creating a defensible thermal zone. If it's summer, your enemy is heat gain. Close all blinds, curtains, and shades, especially on south and west-facing windows. Heat enters your home primarily through windows via solar radiation. Blocking it is your first line of defense. If you have light-colored sheets or reflective material, hang them in windows to bounce heat back outside. Next, identify the coolest room in your house, typically a basement, interior room, or north-facing space. This becomes your heat refuge. Move essential supplies here. Water, snacks, entertainment for kids, first aid. You're creating a microclimate that's 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the rest of the house. If it's winter, your strategy inverts. You're now fighting heat loss, and your enemy is infiltration, cold air seeping through cracks, windows, and doors. Grab towels, blankets, even duct tape, and seal gaps under doors and around window frames. Every draft you eliminate extends your thermal runway by hours. Choose the smallest room that can accommodate your household, often a bedroom or interior living space. Small spaces retain heat better because there's less volume to maintain. Close doors to unused rooms. You're not heating the whole house anymore. You're defending a thermal perimeter. If you have a fireplace, resist the urge to use it unless you're certain the flue is clear and you have adequate ventilation. More people die from carbon monoxide and blackouts than from temperature extremes. Here's the biological reality you're managing. The human body maintains a core temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit within a narrow range. Drop below 95 and you're hypothermic. Rise above 104 and you're in hyperthermia. Your home's thermal management isn't about comfort in hour 1. It's about preventing medical emergencies in hour 12. And here's the empowering truth. By taking these actions in the first 60 minutes, you've bought yourself a 12 to 24 hour buffer before temperature becomes a crisis. That's not luck. That's thermodynamics, working in your favor. Food is emotional. In a blackout, the kitchen becomes a focal point of anxiety. What can we eat? What will spoil? How do we cook without power? But here's the reality. In the first hour, you're not worried about starvation. You're worried about decision fatigue and resource optimization. Move 7 is about staging your nutrition strategy for the next 72 hours. Start by taking inventory, not a detailed spreadsheet, just a mental map. What non-perishables do you have? Canned goods, dried pasta, rice, nuts, protein bars, peanut butter. These are your foundation. What perishables are in your fridge that need to be consumed first? Dairy, deli meat, leftovers. These are your first day menu. Here's your action sequence. Prepare one meal right now that doesn't require cooking and doesn't require opening the fridge more than once. Sandwiches are ideal. They're calorie dense, require minimal prep, and can be made in bulk. Make enough for your household to eat in the next 4 hours. This accomplishes 2 things. It provides immediate nutrition, reducing stress and decision-making later, and it uses perishables before they enter the danger zone. Next, identify your cooking alternatives. If you have a gas stove, it likely still works. You'll just need to light burners manually with a match or lighter. If you have a grill, charcoal, or propane, it's now your primary cooking method, but don't deploy it yet. You're still in hour 1 and you haven't assessed fuel reserves. If you have a camping stove, same principle. Inventory fuel, but don't burn it prematurely. Here's the mistake everyone makes. They cook elaborate meals in the first few hours, burning through fuel and perishables in a panic to not waste food. That's backwards. Your strategy is sequential consumption. Perishables first, then refrigerated items, then frozen items as they thaw, then non-perishables. You're creating a cascading menu that maximizes resources over time. And here's your psychological hack. Designate specific meal times and stick to them. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Not grazing, not panic eating, not boredom snacking. Structure creates normalcy, and normalcy reduces stress. You're not just feeding bodies, you're feeding minds. The empowering reality? You've just transformed your kitchen from a source of anxiety into a command post with a 72-hour operational plan. That's not just meal prep, that's crisis management. Here's the truth nobody wants to confront. More injuries occur in the first 24 hours of a blackout than in the entire week that follows, because people are moving through familiar spaces in unfamiliar conditions, making assumptions about safety that no longer hold true. Move 8 is your safety audit, and you've got 15 minutes to execute it. Start with trip hazards. Walk through your home and remove anything on the floor that could cause a fall in low light. Shoes, toys, cords, rugs that slip. Falls are the #1 blackout injury, especially among children and elderly family members. Next, secure chemical hazards. If your power outage was caused by a storm or infrastructure failure, there's a possibility of gas leaks or water contamination. Do a smell test. Natural gas has a distinctive sulfur odor. If you detect it, evacuate immediately and call emergency services from outside. Check under sinks for cleaning products that could spill or leak. Move them to secure, upright positions. Now locate your first aid kit and place it in your designated command center room. If you don't have a first aid kit, create a basic one right now. Bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers, any prescription medications family members need. Speaking of medications, if anyone in your household requires refrigerated medicine, like insulin, this is your critical vulnerability. Insulin remains viable at room temperature for 28 days. But if you're in a heat wave, you need a cooling strategy. Wet towels, evaporative cooling, or a neighbor with a generator. Here's your fire safety protocol. Identify all exits from your home and make sure they're accessible in the dark. If you're using candles despite my earlier warning, never leave them unattended and place them in stable holders away from flammable materials. Keep a fire extinguisher accessible and make sure family members know where it is. And here's the element most people overlook: carbon monoxide. If you're using any combustion device indoors, camp stoves, grills, generators, you're creating an invisible killer. Carbon monoxide is odorless and deadly. Never use these devices in enclosed spaces. Generators must be at least 20 feet from your home with exhaust directed away from windows and doors. But here's the kicker. This 15-minute safety sweep isn't about paranoia. It's about eliminating the stupid, preventable injuries that turn a manageable blackout into a medical emergency. You're not just securing your home, you're securing your family's physical integrity. Here's the final truth, and it's the most important. The greatest threat in the first hour of a blackout isn't darkness, thirst, heat, or hunger. It's panic. It's the psychological spiral that turns a manageable situation into chaos, and it spreads like a virus, especially among children. Move 9 is about establishing psychological dominance over the situation. Gather your household, everyone who's home, and have a 5-minute briefing. Not a discussion, not a debate. A briefing. Here's what's happening. Here's what we've done. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how long we're prepared for. Your tone matters more than your words. Calm, confident, matter of fact. You're not minimizing the situation, you're framing it as manageable. For children, this is critical. Kids take their emotional cues from adults. If you're frantic, they'll be terrified. If you're calm, they'll be curious. Reframe the blackout as an adventure, a camping trip indoors. Assign them age-appropriate tasks, holding a flashlight, organizing supplies, being the water monitor. Responsibility creates purpose, and purpose displaces fear. For adults, acknowledge the stress but redirect it into action. Yes, this is inconvenient. Here's what we're doing about it. Create a schedule for the next 12 hours. Meal times, check-in times, rest times. Structure is the antidote to anxiety. And here's your secret weapon: entertainment and distraction. In the first hour, while you still have mental energy, gather non-digital entertainment. Board games, books, cards, puzzles. These aren't luxuries. They're psychological tools. Boredom and rumination are the enemies of morale. If you have battery-powered or hand-cranked devices, consider playing music. Music is a mood regulator. It signals normalcy. It creates shared experience. Even 30 minutes of music can reset a household's emotional state. Here's the neuroscience you're leveraging. The human brain is wired to catastrophize in uncertainty. It fills information gaps with worst-case scenarios. Your job in hour 1 is to replace uncertainty with information, chaos with structure, and helplessness with agency. You're not just managing a blackout, you're managing the narrative. And here's the empowering truth. By the end of this first hour, you've done something remarkable. You've transformed your household from a collection of individuals reacting to a crisis into a coordinated unit executing a plan. That's not just preparedness, that's leadership. So let's loop back to where we started. You thought you had time. You thought the lights would come back on. You thought candles and phone scrolling were the answer. But now you know the truth. The first hour of a blackout is a cascade of decisions that either compound into resilience or collapse into chaos. You've secured water while pressure still flowed. You've preserved your cold chain while physics was still on your side. You've established light discipline, communication architecture, thermal defense, nutrition staging, safety protocols, and psychological fortification. 9 moves, 60 minutes, and you've just bought yourself 72 hours of operational capacity that 90% of your neighbors don't have. This isn't about being a prepper or a survivalist. This is about understanding that modern life is a thin veneer over very old vulnerabilities, and when that veneer cracks, the humans who thrive are the ones who act decisively in the margins that matter most. Here's the final reality. Blackouts are increasing in frequency and duration. Climate change, aging infrastructure, cyber attacks, extreme weather. The grid is more fragile than it's ever been, and the trend line isn't improving, which means the skills you've just learned aren't theoretical. They're inevitable. Your adaptability isn't a question. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and every conceivable crisis. We're wired for resilience. But resilience isn't passive. It's not something you have. It's something you do. And it starts in the first hour with the first decision, with the first action that says, I'm not waiting for rescue. I'm executing a plan. The next blackout is coming, maybe next month, maybe next year, maybe tonight. And when the lights go out and the hum of civilization goes silent, you'll have a choice. React or execute. Panic or protocol. Chaos or command.